Hi, my name is Dorian Murray Thomas, and I'm happy to be here with you today to reflect on my Lang Social Impact Fellowship. I want to start just by saying thank you to everyone from the Lang Center, from the Lang Social Impact Fellowship Program, for the LOS program, who made these opportunities possible for me. When I think about all the work that I've been able to do because of the generosity and leadership and coaching from the Lang programs, I'm just utterly grateful. From Jennifer to Professor Berger to Dolores, Deborah. I mean, there's so many people whose lives have touched me and shaped my own. And so, again, thank you. And none of this work will be possible without you. So, a lot of people kind of start their college years trying to figure out what they want to do. But one of the things I knew very clearly before I even started at Swarthmore was that I wanted to be a Lang Scholar. I vividly remember being on a tour at the school, my senior year of high school, and hearing a lot of the same things that I was hearing at liberal arts schools and during the tours. But then this one thing that stood out, which was that you could go to this school and not only pursue all these different passions that you have, but actually get support to implement something that's social impact, social justice related in your community. And I knew that there had been no other school that I had gone to that spoke so honestly and boldly about investing in their students' visions for their community. And that Swarthmore was a place that I wanted to be. And so you could only imagine how happy I was a couple years later when I actually got that opportunity as a Lang Scholar. I vividly remember being in Sharples, getting this email and stopping everything that I was doing. So it was in this moment that I realized everything that I dreamed of doing for my city, for my community, could actually come true because of this opportunity. Of course, the girl who just 10 or so years prior had every aspect of her life change from one phone call wouldn't have expected this. A girl who pictured in this picture finishing up a swim meet with her mom and dad in the background would 2 months later find out that her dad was gunned down, literally just 2 blocks from her home. And so to think that this young woman would years later be able to create a village for other young women who've gone through similar stories to focus on healing and self and community transformation, it's something that's almost unheard of. But again, because of programs like the Lang Opportunity Scholarship Program, like the Lang Social Impact Fellowship, this was able to become a reality for me. It's odd to think about the pain that comes from experiences like adverse childhood experiences or traumatic events as children, and how fairly common it is. We know that 1 in 5 children will experience the death of someone close to them by the age of 18, and that these types of traumas, which are commonly known as adverse childhood experiences, are fairly common. Nearly half of all students or young people in this country will, in fact, experience at least one form of adverse childhood experience or ACE factor as a kid. Now, when you look at this data in inner cities, like the ones that I'm from, like the city of Newark, cities like Philadelphia, Chicago, and the like, these statistics become all the more staggering, with estimates that between 70 and 100% of young people in these neighborhoods are exposed to trauma. And what does this mean? Well, one, it increases the likelihood of really risky outcomes and behaviors. Students who experience particularly multiple level of ACE factors are more likely to be engaged in risky behaviors like substance abuse, having difficulty in school, having psychological and mental challenges. But what the data also shows is that when protective factors are in place, protective factors like mentorship, like strong family relationships, like leadership opportunities and new learning opportunities, like community support and wellness and wholeness, we actually see that a lot of the risk factors that are attached to ACE scores and trauma are actually mitigated. And so with She Wins, that's what I sought to do. I sought to create a community, a village around young women that would show that regardless of where you're from or what you go through, when you have the supports, you will win. And not only will you win, but you will help other people around you win themselves and achieve their goals. Because this work stands firmly on the belief that when young people have the tools and resources that they need, they're not in need of saving. They can actually save themselves. And so at She Wins, our work really rests in that core belief that young people can become their own heroes. And our mission is to empower the next generation of college, career, and community-ready young women leaders, and doing so by ensuring that the young girls who are most exposed to risk are actually best prepared for post-secondary success. And so we do this through a couple ways. And one of the things that's really important to this work is targeting young women who are often most at the margins. One of the things that the data shows is that while all young people who are exposed to trauma are at risk following these traumatic events without there being protective factors in place, but young women in particular, particularly young women who grew up in poverty and who lack the social and emotional outside of resources to cope with those traumas, are actually more likely to develop psychological and emotional challenges following traumatic events, right? We know that girls and women are more likely to get depression compared to their male counterparts. And so when this is multiplied by the nuanced dynamics of adolescence, the nuanced dynamics of dealing with adolescent trauma, it's young women, young girls who in fact bear the brunt of trauma far more than some of their counterparts. Not to mention that young women are more likely to be the subjects of various forms of violence. And so we understand that the plight of girls, young women and girls, particularly in our urban and most underserved communities, is particularly damaging, and one that if we aren't intentional about naming and grappling with, that will continue to go out of hand at the expense of our children. And so in that vein, She Wins targets young women from the city of Newark and cities like Newark, particularly young women who have been affected by violence. Most all of our young women are on free and reduced lunch within our community. Almost all of them are Black and Latinx students. They're all in middle and high school. One of our key goals is to make sure we catch our students before it's too late. And so doing an early intervention model that allows us to begin engaging with our young women between the 6th and 8th grade. That way we can provide supports and programming for them to and through high school. So that way there's long-term engagement and a long-term approach to making sure our young women have the college, career, and community-ready tools and resources to help them achieve their goals. And so I wouldn't be a real Lang scholar if I didn't have a logic model. And really the vision and kind of framework that really kind of anchors this logic model is this idea that if we provide young people with a comprehensive set of social, emotional, leadership development, and civic opportunities to develop themselves, not only will they transform their own lives, but they'll transform their communities. And you can see it in the core principles that manifest in the work that's being done. Our key values are sisterhood, service, and self-actualization, because we believe that young women can become their own heroes and can be the catalyst for both individual and community change. And it shows in the work. Often we hear coming up with this quote that hurt people hurt people. But we also know that heal people heal people. And when given the resources to do so, not only do heal people heal other people, but they heal whole communities. Key to the work in She Wins, evidence in our core pillars, are having our young women have space to be vulnerable and open about their traumas and their stories, and use that and activate that to help transform their communities through service learning, through social action, through sisterhood, or being able to be a big sister to somebody and then also be on the other end of getting that love. We know that when our young people have the tools and resources, they will transform the world. And sometimes that world, it is okay if that world is just your community or just your school or just your block or just, the neighborhood that you're working in. But we know that it is critical for young people to have systematic spaces, to have their voice and their stories not only be at the table, but have a direct influence on what's happening around them. So over the years, from starting as a small project with literally just 10 girls and a small back of a recreation center in the middle of Newark, we've been able to grow consistently every single year. Today, literally working with 50 times the number of young women we started with, right? Having reached literally over 500 girls through our summer leadership program, through our after-school program, through our workshops that we run, not only myself as a staff member and our volunteers, but the workshops that our young women actually lead and operate in the community. Our work has been able to literally multiply through numerous mediums in the community. Our girls come from over 21 different schools in the city of Newark, representing 4 of the highest needs wards in our city. And we've been able to literally achieve a 100% graduation rate for our students. Now, this is key because when we started in 2015, I shared earlier about our early intervention model, naming that our young people start with us between the 6th and 8th grade, and we provide supports and programming for them both to and through high school. In a city where annually only around 70% of young people graduate high school. And when I was growing up, and in fact, the year I started She Wins, there were roughly only 50 to 55% of young people graduating high school. To have 100% of the young women who started with us in middle school and who are now in their senior year actually graduate and graduate on time. This is critical. And it shows that when you give young people the tools and resources they need to thrive, they will win. As you can see, it's not necessarily how you start. It's about how you finish. And when I think about these young women in the picture to the left and how they molded into the picture of the young women on the right, I think of girls who came to me brilliant and smart and talented and gifted. I didn't give them any gifts and talents that they didn't already have. But what we were able to produce and to create for these young women was a space for these gifts and these talents to be molded and refined and nurtured in a way that maybe they hadn't been before. And that would lead them to becoming the young women they are today. Women who are on their way to college, young women who are literally running their own versions of She Wins within their schools, women who started with us as little 7th and 8th graders, getting mentored, and are now serving as the peer mentors for other 7th and 8th graders coming up after them within She Wins. Girls who have literally become their own heroes. As we know, it's been a trying few months for our country, for our families, for all of us. But nevertheless, she persists and she wins. Graduating high school, getting off to college, graduating middle school, in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of social and political change, our young people, they win. And so what has this work looked like for our young women in the city of Newark? As we know, service and social action are core pillars of our work at She Wins. And key to that is how our young women's work actually helps transform their community. And so through our girls' social actions and service learning projects, they have literally touched the lives of more than 1,300 members of the Newark community. They are literally being the change, having dedicated over 500 hours of service annually and contributing to their community in so many ways, so much so that they keep coming back. And so over the years, we have sustained a 96% year-to-year retention rate, showing that our young women who start with us as eager, big-eyed middle school students, they stay. And they stay in our program to not only receive and be on the receiving end of these resources, but actually turnkey it back by serving the young women in She Wins as peer mentors, and turnkeying it a little bit more by serving their community through their social action projects and their service learning projects. Our young women at She Wins are being the change. And this work has been able to reach so many people across the state of New Jersey, across the country, some even across the globe, with She Wins having amassed a following of over 14,000 followers across social media platforms. Again, not because of anything brilliant that one person has done, but the brilliance and the power that comes with creating an entire community of nurturing, of accountability, and of resilience around our young people so that they can reflect those same values into themselves and into their communities. Key to our growth has been our partnerships and our ability to refine our model and find different ways to institutionalize it in our community. And so while I founded this organization originally explicitly for girls affected by gun violence, what we started to see was that a lot of the young women who came to us actually had multiple stories of trauma. And so would not only come to us as young women who lost a parent or sibling to gun violence, but also were survivors of sexual assault. Or also were young women who grew up in neighborhoods where they feared for their lives just walking to and from school. And so we began to become more inclusive in our target demographic of young women affected by various forms of trauma and violence, creating a space that could be shared with young women with varied stories of resilience and survival, but with one common goal, and that was to heal, and to not only heal themselves, but help heal their communities. And we haven't done this on our own. Being able to partner with incredible institutions and organizations, both within the city of Newark and beyond, literally with over a dozen key stakeholder partnerships, our work has been able to travel beyond the state of New Jersey, with girls being able to literally travel the globe, going from Kosovo to Namibia to speaking literally on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Our partnerships, both at the local, state, and national level, have enabled this work to deepen and expand beyond ways I could have even imagined. Partnering with organizations like Rutgers University of Newark, which, because of that partnership for over these past 3 years, has allowed She Wins to actually be institutionalized within the Rutgers Newark University, with She Wins becoming an official summer leadership partner with the largest and most diverse institution of higher education in the state of New Jersey. And again, this work has resonated with so many people across the state, across the country in this story, a universal story truly, of what happens when we invest in those of us who have received often the worst of the world. When we invest in all of our communities and all of those, even those in our communities who are at the margins, we see that they win. And that when they win, it's a benefit to all of us. And so this story, this She Wins story, is really all of our story. And it's been beautiful to see how it's resonated with so many people across our country over these past few years. And I credit so much of this work to the original support that I've gotten from the Lang Opportunity Scholarship Program, from the Lang Social Impact Fellowship, not only from the tangible financial support to actually launch the program, but just the coaching and the mentoring. I can't even count how many times I could call or email Jennifer or Professor Berger, or the number of alumni even that I've met through the Lang Scholar Program and the Social Impact Fellowship, who've poured into me, who've mentored me, who've held me accountable to delivering at a higher level of excellence. I give so much credit of the work that we've been able to do to all of the people from this Lang family who have helped make me who I am, and who have, in effect, helped transform the lives of so many other young people through this work. Some big questions that we're asking as we go into this new season and as I close my Impact Fellowship: defining what quality programming looks like for our young people in the age of COVID-19, finding more diverse and innovative ways to promote sustainability within our organization, and defining and scaling success, particularly in the age of this pandemic, in the age of consequently a more reasonable and understandable shift to virtual programming. What does it look like to both define and scale success during these times? Over the past few weeks, a lot of our programming, of course, due to the pandemic, has been virtual. And it's actually expanded and opened some doors for what we may be able to do in terms of scaling our work into other cities. We've got folks from Los Angeles, from Philly, from Baltimore, who are interested in seeing what a She Wins program could look like in their space. And so now, even as we confront big challenges, we also confront some big opportunities. And I'm excited to figure these things out and ask these tough questions and work hand in hand with my young people, with our stakeholders, and with incredible partners and thought partners like you to figure these things out. And so as I reflect on the experience of these past 5 years, going from being an eager-eyed Lang Opportunity Scholar with all the questions, who thought she had all the answers in the world, to now someone who is a Lang Social Impact Fellow, who's been able to ask a lot of those questions that she thought she had the answers to years ago, I can't help but feel more challenged and activated than ever. Challenged because we know, as this pandemic has shown, as the social and political moment that we're in shows, our questions have only somewhat gotten bigger during these times, because we see just how gross the inequities that exist within our communities for our young people are. And so as much as I am optimistic about the work that we have left to do and proud of the work that we've been able to do, I also know that we have some pretty unprecedented times ahead of us that will ask a lot of us, that may be messy and may be chaotic. But when I think about all of those moments that are ahead, I can't help but think about our girls and all the young people who have been touched by She Wins, who have been touched by the institution of the Lang Center itself. And I think of their hope, and I think of their resilience, and how much they've been able to overcome. And I can't help but be hopeful myself, because I know that when we listen to our young people and when we give them the opportunity to tell us the answers and help find the solutions to these big social issues, help them find these solutions with us, I know that there's nothing we can't accomplish. And so I come into this next chapter extremely optimistic and extremely grateful. Grateful for the teachers, for the mother, for the mentors, for the professors who never gave up on me, who never gave up on this girl who at a young age felt like her world was going to end. But because of the support and because of the cultivation and nurturing from incredible people, was able to transform that moment of insurmountable pain to so many victories. Because I was able to not only heal from my own traumas and heal from my own pain, but able to know that a big part of that healing came from knowing my voice and knowing that perhaps because of how intimately connected I was to the problem itself, perhaps I could help have a say in finding a solution and manifesting that very ideal into the core of the work that we do with She Wins. Creating a space where young women who from young ages experience some of the very worst of the world can understand that their stories and that their challenges, in fact, help them become some of the people who are best fit to find their solutions. And so I stand here today extremely grateful for all the girls in this picture, for the girl who literally had to go through what felt like the end of her world to realize that, in fact, her story was just getting started. And that one day she would not only overcome those hills and those battles that she felt were insurmountable at that age, but she would walk across a stage with an incredible institution like Swarthmore that would give her the platform to create a platform for young women coming after her. And who, with just a few years after doing that, would cross another stage in her hometown of Newark, in the city where she saw so much light and so much darkness, be able to come back and serve her community in another way by becoming the youngest woman ever elected to the school board, in a space where she could help pour into and invest in a bunch of other young people, over 55,000 other young people who shared stories of triumph, of tragedy, of resilience, of hope, both similar and different to her own. I'm grateful for all the girls in these pictures and all the girls whose stories, my stories, has helped told. And so, yes, while this year has brought unprecedented challenges, there have been some incredible moments of light because of the Lang Social Impact Fellowship. Not only have we been able to fund our virtual programming, fund our in-person programming when we were in person, but also when the pandemic hit, we're able to really be there for our families and providing some of these basic needs and materials like food packages and emergency meals for our families when they needed it most. And the level of challenges that we experienced as an organization were not limited to the pandemic this year. One of our young women who literally started with us in our very beginning in 2015, as she was preparing to apply to colleges and go off to school, was in what could have been a deadly accident and is currently paralyzed from the waist down. But in the true spirit of She Wins and all the girls and women who have come before her, she still wins today. and she is fighting to learn how to walk, but she will still graduate high school. And actually, in fact, next week, she will be crossing the stage. And I'll be lucky enough to be one of the speakers at the graduation to help her and the other young people who are graduating step into this new season. Because we know that our young people, even when they experience the worst of the world, when they have the support, when they have the tools, they will win. And so as we come into this new season, after the pandemic, after the Social Impact Fellowship, we know that the work still must go on. And so big things that we're thinking about and that lie within the future for She Wins are building out even deeper our college and career pathways, starting a She Wins social innovation hub that will give our students the opportunities to actually get funding for the social impact ventures and projects that they're working on, a deeper provision of wraparound services to help our young people with the social, emotional, and leadership development needs that exist, a deeper set of supports for our parents who love their children dearly, but need support to help their young people become the best young people who they can possibly be, and a physical She Wins space, one that we can call our own, that houses our programming, that allows our young people to have a physical space to come to outside of school. Although we have incredible partnerships with institutions like Rutgers Newark, and we have a great office space here in Newark, to have a physical home that is built for She Wins girls by them, and that could literally be the physical and figurative hub for this work. These are some of the things that are our visions for what the future could hold and should hold for She Wins, and that I would love to keep the conversation going with you, even past the Social Impact Fellowship conclusion, around what this could look like and how to actualize this vision. So I just want to end by saying thank you. Thank you for the work that you do every day to make my story possible, and to make the stories of all the young women whose stories and destinies and lives are attached to mine become possible. I want to say thank you to Mr. Lang, whose vision for this country, for society, was so big and so great that just one man could literally touch the lives of hundreds of thousands of people, including a young girl like me. And when I think about a beautiful experience I had a few months ago with actually a Lang Opportunity Scholar alum, Miss Barbara Kukla, one thing she told me, she said, Dorian, I wish you could have just met Eugene. She said, because, I mean, you can tell the kind of person he is now, but man, if you just would have known him to experience that in real life, it would have been a gift. And I can't help but wonder what a conversation with Mr. Lang would have felt like, would have looked like. But what I do know is that when I look at the young people in She Wins, and I look at their siblings who grew up saying, oh, now I want to be in She Wins too. When I look at their parents, and I look at them crossing the stage, be it physically or virtually, I see the work, the hope, and the dream of Mr. Lang and everybody who his work has touched. I see it in them. And so I am humbly and deeply grateful for all the opportunities provided by the vision of Mr. Eugene Lang, the vision of the Lang Center, and the ways in which this vision has been manifested in real time through two programs that have quite literally changed my life and the lives of hundreds of kids connected to mine here in the city of Newark, through the Lang Opportunity Scholarship Program, through the Lang Social Impact Fellowship Program. Thank you. I am humbly grateful, and the work continues. We've got a lot more to do within our cities, within our organizations, but I'm optimistic that we'll figure it out and that we're on the right direction. Thank you so much, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity.